Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. So it's again me, Stefan, here from Platforce, and we have a wonderful guest here at CPHI Japan. His name is Inyong Lee, from Viseven, and he's covering the Japanese and the Korean market. In fact, welcome, Ian.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, the pleasure is definitely ours.
Yeah.
At Platforce. And I have an interesting question. So you are obviously covering the Japanese and the Korean market. Could you tell me what are the differences on the pharma license market for these two?
Sure. So before that, I would have to explain what my coverage is. So when we're talking about covering the Korean Japan market, of course, my main focus is Japan, since I'm located in Tokyo. But our clients, especially the accounts that I'm in charge of, that we're collaborating with, these are big mega companies. So mega pharmaceutical manufacturers that are coming in from a regional standpoint. So we are being involved as either a tech vendor of our platform, which is eWizard for content, and also omni-channel support for those big names under the regional hood. So I've had the pleasure to talk at actually both the Korean and Japan market for the same account with the same client.
Oh, that's so nice.
And that experience definitely gives me the lesson of what the actual difference is. So I would have to put into two portions. So first is the speed of, let's say, adoption or adaptation of new environments or new, technical, toolkits, for example.
Yeah.
So starting with Japan, Japan is relatively a conservative market in terms of change. When I'm talking about change, we're talking about implementation of new tools, implementation of new CRM. Adoption of a new workflow for the whole, HCP journey, for example. That is all conservative in terms of the accounts being very careful in terms of assessing exactly what are the benefits, what are the demerits that might happen, and adopting that will definitely take some time compared to what you experience in Europe and also even Korea as well. So on the other hand, for Korea, I just slightly mentioned it just now, but Korea is a fast evolving market. It has been so for about 20 to 25 years. That's why when we're talking about adopting changes, not just including new CRM, but also gaining support from external agencies, that's very fast. And last thing, the second point that I want to make is the work burden for the clients that we face as tech vendors or agencies. So for Korea, as I mentioned, it's a fast evolving market, but what I see is one person's job, one person's role and responsibility for Korea is definitely a lot compared to what a team member might have in Japan, simply because the team size, even though it may be a big mega company, the responsibility of one team member is definitely much bigger, and the workload is quite heavy compared to what I contact or what I connect with the stakeholders in Japan. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because when we're talking about the difference between Korea and Japan, you see that there's much more leeway or wiggle room for us to provide a service where we will lessen the burden under under the team members' shoulders in Korea more specifically. In Japan, because you have the workflow that has been assessed for quite some time and it's proven that it works, the change itself and the work burden release won't be such an attraction factor for our potential clients in Japan. But for Korea, if we have an attractive point that this will save time, this will save cost, this will save the involvement of a brand manager, for example, for content creation, they will be very much attractive compared to what Japan audience might think.
Interesting. So I was talking to a pharma executive here in Japan, and he was saying that in Japan, people don't want to look like they're the decision makers. So it's very hard. So even if you're talking to the boss will try to tell you that, hey, I'm the boss, but I cannot make a decision right now because they're trying to get sort of like the decision from all the team that, sort of democracy as far as I understand. For me, it sounds like holacracy, where basically the structure is more flat than I bet in Korea. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally don't think it's a bad thing when Japan team is, they're not skipping their responsibilities. What they're trying to do is they want to make the right decision, once again, on the conservative side of things, as I mentioned in the first half. And they want to involve pretty much every stakeholder to not make mistakes. And by saying making mistakes, it means that, when they agree to work with a specific party or tech vendor, for example, they want to ensure that any loopholes even if they are, that can be covered by the collaboration that will happen from that point. So comparing that with Korea, as I mentioned, the decision-making process might be much faster. There might be, that one person, one point of contact who can say, give it a go, and make that okay sign. So that's just a difference in culture. But for Japan, because pretty much all of the stakeholders are involved in the let's say the pre-process, I would have to say that surprising factors or surprises that we might cause to the clients are much less in Japan while we go through the process, because we have an alignment across the team.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question for Mr. Inyong would be, so we have a lot of, here at Platforce, we have a lot of webinars. This one was about AI, in fact, and you can see some specialists from, mostly Europe, UK, and Manuel is from Italy. So my question for you would be, we're seeing a lot of, in some companies, like, we see a lot of AI adoption. In particular, like they're trying to do the best with ChatGPT or similar AI generated tools. Some companies, they try to stay away from AI. What would be your input on how AI adoption is happening in pharma and life science companies in Japan against Korea?
Good question. So I will have to once again focus on my area of focus, which is content. So content authoring tool. When we stick to only content related topics, AI generated contents would be, for the time being, very difficult to get approved and be distributed as a content, approved content to HCPs or to the audience that the pharma companies would send it over to. That would be very, very much of a denominating factor for Japan, because the MLR regulations are quite tough, and as it should be. There's a lot of regulation factors that we have to figure out before we launch a new channel. For example, AI generated videos, for example. So I personally think that for the near future, of course, AI will be the change of the future for sure. But for Japan, it will definitely take some time.
Thank you, Inyong. It was wonderful. Arigato. Kamsahamnida.